Omar, Luke Joachim, don't want to mess that up, from Houlihan Lawrence.
Yep, the one
Luke,
and only.
welcome to the show. Hopefully they're doing the applause for you right now. How's everything?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. So this is actually really cool because we've actually never met in person before. So this is really going to be a first time conversation. So you're a real estate agent, right?
Yep.
And you've been a real estate agent for how long?
About 3 years.
How do you like it so far?
Love it.
What part do you like about it so much?
I like helping people go from renting to owning. I think that that's a big shift in someone's life, and I like being that kind of ambassador or guide from renting to owning.
And how do you feel? I can unpack that statement in a lot of different ways, but let me say this to you. I think there's a perspective shift when that happens, when people go from, I pay to be here, to I own this shit, I got to take care of it. Have you seen, like, when you go to certain neighborhoods where there's more home owners than home renters, do you see a distinct difference? I know I do in different parts of New York City. I don't know if you've encountered the same thing.
You know, up here in Westchester, it's not so clear who's renting and who's owning.
Okay.
And, you know, it's a very different dynamic than I think down in the city. So, you know, personally, I like to see that wealth build. I think that it's the difference between the haves and the have-nots. I think that's just, you know, and not being harsh on people that rent or anything like that, because, you know, there's definitely people that own billions in stocks and say you should rent and whatever. But at the end of the day, when I went from renting to buying, I felt a big shift in my own perspective and the way lenders and banks and insurance companies, like, all my bills kind of changed because now you own property. So, you know, and that was just a big eye-opening thing. Now in all those applications, you can check owner, and they just treat you different. It's just a different thing, and I want, you know, as many people as possible to feel that.
So does your family own real estate? Did your parents own your house where you grew up in?
Yeah. So so my parents own one house.
Okay.
My dad moved around a lot when he was a kid. So
He's the Army or?
No, his dad was a preacher. So they, you know, they had to move around, you know, different churches and whatever, and live in different places. But so when he was going to have kids, he said, like, I'm going to buy one house. My kids are going to live in one place, make one group of friends, and not have to, you know, acclimate to different, you know, towns and whatever. So
and where was that?
Oakland, California.
Oakland, California. You grew up in Oakland, California?
Yeah.
All right. And how did we get to New York City? And how did we decide to become a real estate person in New York City? You see where, like, it's a big kind of gap, big vacuum there that we got to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long story, but to sum it up, to keep it short, I went to college in New Orleans for music.
Okay.
Had a thriving DJ career.
We'll talk about that next.
Yep. Yeah. My wife is from Westchester County. She's from North Salem.
Where'd you meet her?
I met her in college, so
That's
we're college sweethearts.
Right.
We lived down in New Orleans for about 7 years total. When we got engaged, I really wanted to try the East Coast and be closer to one of our families, whether that's the West Coast or the East Coast, and also see if in my DJ career, if I could be in the most oversaturated market in the country or possibly the world and still succeed as a DJ. Was the initial what brought us up here.
Okay. So then you moved where? What was your first place of living in New York City?
Yeah, so we lived in Washington Heights, 182nd in Amsterdam.
Okay.
And then moved to Mount Kisco shortly after that, about 2 years later.
That's a big jump.
Yeah. So we started looking in Westchester. You know, since my wife was from North Salem, she said Mount Kisco is kind of the most, like, kind of city-like in this northern Westchester area.
Okay.
Like, I was not comfortable with, like, wells and septics and all that country stuff. Right. I wanted to have sidewalks. And so we first moved up here, we rented, and then a year later we bought on the same block.
Okay. That's pretty fast. So you're from LA.
I'm from Oakland.
You're from Oakland. I'm sorry. You're from Oakland, California.
Very different than LA.
My bad. Well, give me a comparative in New York City to Oakland.
Yeah. So Oakland is like Williamsburg or Bed-Stuy, in the fact that
Before or after gentrification?
right. So I lived in Oakland when we were the murder capital for the country.
Wow.
The hyphy movement,
The preacher's son.
all of that. Well, yeah,
The preacher's son was in the murder capital of.
Yeah, you know, we had drive-by shootings at school. We had all that kind of stuff. I was like the white boy kind of thing.
Okay.
And yeah, stabbings, all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Which, you know, has its, you know, growing up in that environment has its pluses and minuses in terms of making you, you know, strong and being able to overcome stuff, but also
And how about hyper awareness?
Yeah, hyper
Right?
Yeah, yeah, those street smarts. You know when someone's looking at you or what's going on. Yeah, so it's kind of, you know, builds you in a certain way. And so that's my understanding of Brooklyn before the gentrification. And Oakland's very similar. Now it's super gentrified.
Okay.
There's, you know, restaurants with mac and cheese, you know, and like
Starbucks.
You know, these old, I hate to say it, but like old crack houses that were burnt out that are now $700,000.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and it's
that's definitely Harlem in the 90s and Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
just like, you know, it's crazy to see that change. Yeah, I mean, and I'm blessed to have grown up in Oakland. It was a very different environment and a very unique experience, especially for me, being a white dude.
Well, yeah. Listen, I have to ask, right?
Just to be
I gotta
straight about
ask.
it.
So, like, you're in Oakland, murder capital of the world. Your father's a preacher. You
Well,
have
my grandfather was a preacher.
I'm sorry, grandfather.
My dad's a truck driver.
Your father's a truck driver. I'm sorry about that. Any siblings?
Yeah, I got a sister.
Or just one? So two people.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
just two. So in that predominantly African American, Mexican,
An Asian.
and Asian. How did you you know, like, was it easy to make friends? Was it, you know, you gotta break that down. It's almost like a reverse situation where if I grew up in Westchester and I came from the South Bronx, you know, like when I moved from 196 in Jerome, which is the South Bronx, to an area called Pelham Bay in the Bronx in the 90s or late 80s, I wasn't really well received. There's not too many brown guys over there. So I have to ask you, how did you feel when you were over there? Were you well received, or did it take time, or how was that going?
Well, the thing was, I grew up there, so
Right.
I was just part of the neighborhood already.
So you
I
went to
grew
school
up,
with them?
I went to public school throughout the whole time.
Right.
Even when my parents said that they were pressured to send me to private school because these schools Oakland public schools did not have the best ratings
Right.
and things like that, but they felt like, you know, street smarts are just in cultural, you know, just being, well, first off, public schools as an idea is really important.
Right.
Second off, you know, life is about more than just test scores.
Absolutely.
And just breaking those stereotypes and just not being afraid of the world kind of thing.
Right.
So anyway, so I grew up in it. So I was just always the white boy. I was always told, oh, you're not white. You're just, you know, you're an Oreo or whatever. You know,
Right.
I got a lot of that kind of stuff.
It came up something to kind of legitimize you.
Right.
Right,
Like,
right.
you know, Eminem was big at the time. So they were always like, oh, you're like our Eminem, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
You know, so it was an interesting dynamic.
Well, it's cool that they embraced you, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because there were definitely a couple other white people that
weren't being embraced.
Yeah. So like there was in middle school there was one other white guy, and he was always kind of an outsider. He had kind of a punk rock vibe.
Okay.
And but would change up. Like one day he was punk rock, the next day he was hip hop, the next day, you know, and he just kept changing up.
Trying to figure out who he was.
Yeah,
Right.
and that wasn't.
So were you hip hop?
I was, yeah.
We're
100%.
gonna get there because you know where I'm going with it. But so you were hip hop. You loving the culture.
Yeah, so
Okay.
just grew up in it and embraced it, and I mean that's just what it was back then. I mean the hyphy movement had started, so that was a big local movement with E40 and a bunch of local acts, and I got swept up in that and the excitement of that.
Okay.
And then in high school, the DJing kind of came about because that was a way to relate to be the cool guy with the turntables,
Right.
not the awkward white guy that can't dance.
Or get
Like,
invited to the parties.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Luke's got turntables. Like, this is when vinyl was like the thing. Like,
Yeah.
I was so lucky because I had to learn on vinyl when I was learning. And then about 1 year into actually going out and DJing, that's when digital DJing became a thing.
The
So
MacBook DJ.
The MacBook. So you could,
right.
you know, you didn't have to carry crates anymore.
Right.
And so anyway, yeah, I mean, I've got the whole like classic, like used to go to radio stations and get the radio promos and all that kind of stuff for just a little bit of while, just to get my feet wet or whatever in that, and then got the easiness of the computer.
But I mean,
so anyway,
look, the whole thing about look, you're touching on a lot of stuff that I love, because a lot of it is teaching people grit without teaching people. So here you are, not being the color that most of these people are, but you're in a culture where it embraces everybody, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Jabberwockies. We'll break down every country that loves hip hop, and that to me is the craziness, because hip hop to me was created out of necessity, because there was no, like, it started in the South Bronx, right? Mm-hmm. In the burned down buildings, they were DJing off the electric cords from the lights on the street, because nobody had electricity. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where else could you go? You couldn't afford to go to a nightclub, and none, like none of that. So something had to manifest to give people an outlet. And here it is. It went to L.A. Oakland, and then it follows you New Orleans, and so you're all over hip hop. So which brand, or not which manifestation of hip hop do you identify with the most?
Well, here's actually kind of the background to before I became a DJ. So I started. Okay, the hyphy movement was going on, and it's all about.
Can you break down hyphy? Because a lot of guys not gonna know what that is.
Yeah, so you know, it's going stupid, going dumb, you know, thiz, so doing doing drugs, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So actually,
what's the other one? The scissor. Or is that another? Is that something totally different?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's all part of it. It's a drug culture kind of thing. And Mac Dre is kind of, you know, our martyr in the culture. And then we've got E40, Too Short, and the list goes on and on. And I was so surprised when I first got here and people didn't know who Too Short was. Mm-hmm. But I digress. So. Okay. So I actually started by starting a student club where I would throw parties that I called bars, which stood for break, art, rap, scratch.
Like that.
The 4 elements of hip hop.
Right.
And so we would have a dance battle, a rap battle, 2 DJs, and do graffiti on stage with water-based paint.
Okay.
And that's how I started.
Okay.
Promoting those parties and running a student club. I quickly found out I really couldn't afford a DJ that was good enough that I wanted. That, you know, we started running through our free DJs, right? And so you know, I got to a point.
You need a headliner.
After, so I started DJing, and then I realized, you know, I got like an offer from, I think it was like a teacher whose husband was doing a party or something, and they said, "Oh, could you DJ this party?" And I was like, "Yeah," and she was like, "Well, how much do you charge?" I was like,
I don't know.
I don't know. And she's like, well.
You said, what are you willing to pay?
Yeah, well, no. And then she said, well, what about $300? And I was like, yeah,
bet.
I'll do that. And I DJ'd it, had a great time, got paid more than I've ever, you know, when you're in 9th grade or whatever it was.
And you were doing that for love before.
Yeah.
Right?
So started doing that, and then realized, okay, I didn't need to run this whole organization and throw this whole thing. I could just be a DJ and make money and be happy. And so, or, you know, and so I started doing that, and that's what got me into it. Started doing weddings, you know, and just like got all into that, and working with rappers and everything. And then, and it was, again, a social thing. So it was just a way to be the cool kid at the party. I always had like the new music that was coming up. I always knew the cool people, because they knew if they got me the music, like, you know, one of my consistent gigs was in a Black Muslim bakery in East Oakland. It was in North Oakland. Okay. So one of the stories that always kind of comes up. So I had gotten some like a hood track from one gang that's in East Oakland. It was great, and I just loved it. So I played it.
How did they drop
North
it off to you? They come to your house, yo, played it?
No, like so MySpace was like a thing.
Okay,
we would communicate. I was also going to the studio with them, making remixes for them.
Okay.
And so I was embraced on that level too. Yeah. So anyway, and they got me.
You got to break it down, because some people will be like, "Oh, how do you just know everybody?" Right? Like, well, no, but what the part that, you know, like they say, you know, the dream is free, the hustle sold separately. All that other stuff is what's really helping you integrate into this culture, right? All the stuff you're doing on the side, which people wouldn't know. They just think, oh, you're cool. They gave you that. No, man, like I was doing remixes. Like I was doing a lot of stuff probably for free.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
right.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's no real money at that level.
People
and that level.
don't understand. They'll be like, oh, he's just lucky. You're like, nah, he's not. He had to be doing other things.
No. So I mean, I had the privilege of having the money to invest in turntables,
right,
and have the technology. Right. I had the nerdiness to embrace computers and be into that, and hit people up on MySpace. But I also had the hustle to like know that I liked this song and the courage to reach out to that person, no matter who they were, say, hey, I did this little mix for you. You like this, blah, blah, and get those connections and build the network. So, part of it is that what I knew, and part of it is who I knew, and that just naturally grew. So people knew if they called me to come to the party, I could bring the speakers, I could bring the music, I could have it bumping. So, but back to this story. So I got this track from somebody in East Oakland, and I played it at the
Black Muslim Bakery.
Yeah, at the Black Muslim Bakery in North Oakland. And it got shot up because it was from another gang, and it was a whole thing. And
while you were there?
While I was there, yeah. And so we no longer did those parties, but it was a eye-opening experience and a very interesting experience about how music, really, I mean, it's deep. So it goes deep,
right?
And luckily, no one got shot. It was just like they shot a couple shots in the air. It was just kind of a warning thing, stop, don't do that.
Not here.
And so we moved on. But anyway, so then so took that, went to New Orleans to get a degree in music, music business actually. Ended up being the tour DJ for a rapper that was coming up from the Bay Area named G-Eazy. And we were, his roommate was the intern for Drake's tour management. And so then we ended up on the farewell tour with Lil Wayne for right before he was going to jail.
Right.
And so we were an opening act on that. So then I went from hood parties, getting shot up or whatever, to, touring on stage, 10,000 people.
Bumping,
doing my thing. And having some privileges, but also getting lucky in where I was and what I was doing and who I am and all of that. So anyway, so that's kind of like the groundwork of the entrepreneurship that got me started. And
luck they say is when preparedness meets opportunity. So just you giving me a little story about the things that you were doing besides the main things, I feel like I know what you're saying, I feel lucky, and that's dope, feel lucky. But I really feel like I'm a believer you could put two people in a room with the same opportunities and get two totally separate results.
Yeah.
Just from perspective alone.
And actually, I was talking to somebody about this beef earlier.
Oh, big beef.
I don't know if we'll get them later.
Yeah. We'll get them later.
I was in the room with a couple starving musicians a little while ago, and I have a thriving wedding DJ business at this point, and he was complaining. He plays the saxophone. I think he plays another instrument, and he was like, it never pays enough.
I need a break.
Yada yada yada. And I was like, well, he lives in Baltimore, so I was like, well, would you drive to New York City if I could pay you $1,000 to do it? He was like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, cool. And that was it. He never asked. He never said, oh, well, where can I send you my stuff? Or or how do we make this happen?
Right. He didn't follow up.
Yeah. And I think that's a big, and that, something that I'm discovering in myself is that I'll follow up. If there's an opportunity to get on a podcast with Omar, I'm gonna respond. I'm gonna make that happen.
He's fucking made it, guys. Just FYI, all right?
Exactly.
I had to speak to the audience on that one.
Absolutely.
No, I'm glad you're doing it, because obviously, I mean, listen, I'm a big hip hop head, and I can go on and on. I love all manifestations of it, but I also follow hip hop as almost like a business, right? I'm just fascinated with how you can take something that was created on the street, and it's a multi-billion-dollar business, right? And it's sold globally.
Yeah.
Right? Just think about it, right? Like they took something, scratch this record here. Oh, it's kind of cool. And, street parties and all that. And now you got guys, I don't even know what you make per session or per event, but you're able to feed your family doing that.
Yeah, no, I'm blessed in a lot of ways, and and I think that's something a lot of musically inclined people forget about is you can sell your services on the way up, and you can find a way to monetize your skill set without having to be it all rely on your creativity or your creative endeavors, and that's something I was really lucky that I stumbled upon. I could do these parties that I love to do, but I could also DJ that company party and make a few $100s coming up, and that could pay for my next set of gear, and then and I can level up that way. And just realizing that like they're not too, I don't have to work at McDonald's and DJ creatively. I can DJ for other people and sell that skill set. And that's always something I'm trying to, I've got a lot of friends that are musicians, and it's like, all right, so like, how do you get to that wedding planner that can get you?
They're asking you.
Well, I'm asking them, okay, so because I got friends all over the country.
You're trying to show them how to navigate,
right? Like how do we? It's all again, it's all about who you know, not what you know.
Right.
You got to know a certain amount, but really, what opens doors is other people.
Right.
And so how do you navigate? How do you not say, the band leader didn't call me this week, so I can't pay my bills?
Right.
And say, all right, but who can I talk to? Who's that band leader talking to get the gigs? And who can I network with that can open those doors for me directly? How can I eliminate middlemen and other things to get to where I need to be?
Or how do you create? Well, one of the guys I teach my team is that, right? So you give, right? I always tell them, you give more than you get. Always,
absolutely.
That's okay. Like, I took an L. That's okay, man. You took an L today, but in the macro, you'll always win. But what I tell them is, be of value, and because you never know who's watching, right? Mm-hmm. Like I had a friend of mine call me this morning. She, I'll shout her out, Mindy. She does baskets. She does my closing baskets. Friend of mine needs it for I'm not gonna name the corporation, but she works for a really big fashion corporation. They need somebody to do baskets right now. Mm-hmm. So I connected them. She on her birthday, she drops off all the baskets to like all these, like, Jersey. No, like she's like, I'd rather do this on my birthday than just sit home doing nothing. It could lead to something big, right? But she was ready, right? I was like, look, man, I don't know, but connect and see what can happen. And she ran with it, and I'm happy for her. So another person be like, I'm busy, or it's too much. Well, then it is.
Well, there's so many things to unpack there as well. I mean, it's like, the preparation meets opportunity. People want to hire you for what you're already doing. Right. So, as long as you're grinding, that like there's somebody that needs that need filled, and that's really the goal, is to find those people. The other thing is givers gain is a philosophy That's
a great statement. That's a great statement. Yeah.
So I adapted that from a networking group that I was in. So yeah, givers gain. So I mean, that's how I built my realtor company that we haven't talked about yet. Mm-hmm. That's how I built my DJ company. It's just all about giving. It comes back 3, 4, 5-fold, and you have to do it without expectation, right? Because that's where you get caught up, is when you do it and you expect something back, because it never comes back the way you think it's going to come back.
I was going to say, you have to do it with the right intent, right? If you do it with the intent of, hey man, it'll work out. I don't know how. But you're gonna be super happy. So when you're gonna relate that super happiness one day and be like, oh, Omar did that for me. Oh, I gotta call him. Like, it can't be almost like an ROI thing right there. Like, oh, I'm gonna give this to you and I'm gonna make $100. That just never works, right? Mm-hmm. And like you said, you never know. It might not be an ROI on a transaction right now, but they might know somebody else, or somebody could be watching somewhere else. And you never know who's watching.
Yeah. Well, let me share a little story. So when I started in real estate, someone needed help showing a property, 67 acres, that had been on for 3 years. Wow. Doing open houses and stuff. It's been on forever. I wasn't getting paid hourly or anything. Mm-hmm. I said, of course, you got to be doing the thing that you want to be doing before people will pay, or that's at least the way I look at it. Right. And someone called up. It happened to be another agent from Rockland County. Okay. Her daughter was interested in the property, and they came, they toured. That agent was there with us. I went on the tour. They said, oh, could we see all of the land? I said, of course. I got my hiking boots. Let's go. Right. We did all that.
67 acres.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I was authentically happy to do it because this was my opportunity to learn and do.
And here
my
you get
skills.
to practice your profession, right?
Right.
That's what you're doing.
So about a month later, that agent said, "Hey, I really appreciate you showing my daughter. They're probably not going to buy it, but I have these other clients that are selling their house in Rockland County. You're in Westchester. They want to buy in Westchester. Would you mind? Can I refer them to you?"
Right.
I said, "Yeah." That was $1 million sale.
There you go.
About 6 months later.
There you go. Yeah.
And I didn't know that by helping the agent in my office that couldn't sell this property, just being there for free and doing the thing, that I would meet another agent from another county, from another brokerage who was more comfortable going with me than her nationwide brokerage.
Right.
That has plenty of offices in this area, but because she had that experience with me and she knew I would go above and beyond for her clients, she felt comfortable referring me, and that's a decent commission.
Well, isn't it all about? At the end of the day, absolutely. At the end of the day, isn't it all about the experience, right? That's what people don't understand. Like, especially during COVID, like, you could buy. I mean, if we're talking about commodities, we're talking about buying sneakers, we're talking about shoes, whatever. If we're talking about service business, it's all experience. People will. In my humble opinion, people have never like negotiated with me. Because I whip out the whole red carpet. Like the driver will there be pick you up. This and that. What do you need? You have somebody. Oh, you're hungry. Or we're gonna have something delivered to you. Like I give them the full red carpet, so they just love the experience. They're like, yo, I get the attention. I don't care. But I also believe that your client's almost a reflection of you, because that's who I am. Like, if I don't care about the money, if this is gonna get done the way I want it done, I have to worry about it. One less thing on my fucking board. All good, man. Go ahead, do your thing. You earned it, because I want to be spending my energy doing this, not that. So I think people have to. I feel that people that don't have really good experiences all the time, I think they approach it incorrectly. If I was telling somebody this morning, I was like, look, that's not your client. Your client who's going to negotiate over $1 is not really your client, because they're going to leave you over 5 cents. Your client is the guy who's like, yo, I want this, I want that. Don't beat me over the head, but I want good service, and I'm willing to pay for it. That's how you establish a client relationship. You don't establish a client relationship off of, well, he said for $5, if you do it for $3.50, because if somebody says they'll do it for $2, you're out.
Yeah.
There's no relationship there. It's just now all of a sudden you're just a commodity.
Well, the thing to always remember too is that wealthy people will always pay for convenience and service. And so, to relate it to the DJ business, you can have a Spotify playlist. You can have an $800 DJ or whatever. Not to throw specific numbers out there, but you can have a discount DJ. And what I've learned just over my years is you don't discount. You don't even pay attention to that market. I'm the Lamborghini, and I want to work with the people that the money's not the issue. It's, can you perform? Can you make me feel good? Can I provide that service? And I brought that to the real estate business as well. And I often, in my testimonials and things, my reviews, people mention just how responsive and attentive and helpful I am. Like I sold this $4 million house, and they flew their architect up from Florida, all this stuff. And the architect said, "You are the most helpful real estate agent I've ever dealt with," because I looked up the wetlands for him. I anything he needed, I made sure he had that information. I got him the blueprints and all this stuff. And he's just like, "I've never had a real estate agent, do all this." And that's just, so it's just, I'm selling the service. So, there's Redfin, there's all these discount brokerages, but there will always be a place for people with a lot of money that want it done. They want it done right. They don't care. The money's not the issue. It's can you do it? Can you do what you say you're going to do? Can you do it in the time that you say you're going to do it in? And can you do it with a smile? Right. Are you a problem solver, or are you going to create problems? And as long as you focus on the solution, it takes you so much further.
Yeah, I think that people, again, there's two mindsets. Right, there's scarcity and there's abundance. So you have the people who speak in abundance. They're like, "Yeah, man, I want it done. I want it done." Like I know what my superpower is. Right, my superpower is structuring transactions. I'm really good at that. If it's interior design, something my wife will do, because she's actually good at that. Could I be good at it? Maybe, But I think we should all know our own lane. So like, when you're saying we have a super wealthy or just affluent people, they know what they're good at. They want you to handle the real estate, handle it. Like especially, I mean, I've dealt with some high end listings myself. Like usually the husband's like, whatever she says, just let us know. If she likes it, then I'll come see it, and then we'll make the offer. It's usually that way. It's usually a two-pronged assault. First, she gives it okay. I just want to come take a look at it. We'll make an offer. And and usually, if they feel comfortable with you, that's it. That's it. Once they feel comfortable with you, they believe in you. They're not second guessing you. They're like, what do you think? What should the offer be? Like you become that authority, and you've become almost like essential, because now all of a sudden every question is about, hey, what do you think? What do you think? And like you said, if you give them the service, you're always available, and that's what people remember.
Yeah.
Especially real estate. Real estate is not small. Like some of them are small transactions, some of them are the large transactions people can make in their lives. Right?
Yeah. And in a culture that we're in now, where everything is digital, everything is nothing is personal. If you can give that personal experience, if you can show that you really care, that's a unique experience.
Yeah.
So I do my best to make sure they know I'm thinking about them, that I have their best interests at heart, and make that really clear in various ways, from just calls about it seemed like you were a little stressed last time we were talking a few days ago. I just wanted to give you a little call just to see how things are going. Is that written in the realtor book that you're supposed to do courtesy calls like that?
No, you're supposed to give them a disclosure.
Right.
Yeah.
But you do that call, and that call takes you way further. You're not talking numbers. You're not talking whatever, because this is, for this person in particular, it was his first time buying a house. It's stressful. There's so many things. It feels like the fees just never end. Everybody's got their hands in your pocket.
What happens next? What happens next?
Yeah.
What happens next? Yeah.
And even with establishing what the process is, when you're in the middle of it, when you're in the thick of it, and you're going back and forth, when you are negotiating with another party, and you feel like, oh, they're taking advantage of me, and ego gets involved in all these things, it can get tense, no matter how rational of a person you are.
Yeah.
And so,
because you get emotionally involved.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
oh, this is this is what your wife loves. You can see your kids there. I mean, it goes on and on.
Yeah.
And so, just being understanding of that, and not looking at the commission, not looking at whatever, and really being willing to say, look, if this is not the right place, if this isn't going to work out, that's fine. I just want to check in on you and make sure that you're okay, so that you're in the right mindset. You don't feel like you've got a gun to your head to buy this place, and that we come in solid, and that we're the ones that are solid. Forget what the other party's doing. Like, let's focus on you and like what you're doing. So anyway, things like that, I think go a long way, and they're often forgotten because we live in a very busy, distracted, society. There's just always so much going on, but those little things, that's what pays you.
Yeah, they add up.
Yeah. And I just want to say also, like, I was really lucky to find entrepreneurship and business early, when I didn't have to put food on the table.
Right.
So I could be patient and learn this
be able
stuff.
to develop it.
Right. Where I learned that, okay, maybe not everything has to be transactional. It can, I can give and wait. And I understand the perspective from some people that are going to look at this and be like, wow, well, I can't just be giving my stuff out for free all the time.
Well, again, it goes back. Well, see, there we go, right? Like, we end up talking about a different type of perspective. You have different people in life, and that's why you have the 1%, the guys who rise to the top, and you have the rest of them. And it's an unfortunate truth that the mindset and the perspective is what's really, the self-limiting mindsets are what's really holding back the competition from themselves. They can point at you, they could point at me, be like, hey man, it's unfair, there's that, he knew this, he went on tour, and how did he get there though? Right? Like you were asking me, I started in 04, 05. My real estate company was around 10 years. People act like, oh, I want to do what you do. I was like, bro, it took me 10 years to get here. Damn. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, show some respect. Like, it took me time to craft it, to hone it, to develop the relationships, to develop the skill sets, to develop the ability to read between the lines at times, the ability to maybe fall on my face a few times to understand for the next deal so it doesn't happen again. Like, all that takes time. I mean, as long as you're constantly learning from it, then you have like certain people that just make the same mistake all the time. That's a whole different story. But they have to give respect to it, and they have to respect the business. The business is the business is not just selling the house. The business is, yo, what's my brand? What do people know me for? Right? If you treat people like just, numbers, they're going to treat you. I feel like I said before, like your clients are a reflection of you. The way you treat them is usually how they'll treat you. And to me, it's easy. Like if I can determine that early, I've said it, hey man, I'm not the guy for you. I can give you four of the names. Maybe you should go there. Oh, why you say that? I don't know. I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah. No, I've got a crazy story that I'm not gonna go into the details of, but I fired some clients and they left me a 5-star review.
Look at that. All right, worked out.
Because I explained to them, look, this is, I worked really hard to do this deal and it didn't work out for reasons that they hadn't disclosed to me and whatever. But if you feel like I gave you 5-star service, right. Let me know. And they were like, yeah, definitely. And said, oh, well, here's the link to leave a review on Google.
Man. Thanks a
and
lot.
They gave me one of my best reviews. I mean, Luke is a golden goose, all this stuff. Oh. And it's like, I fired him. But
on a deal that didn't close.
Oh, no.
Right.
No,
okay.
No, and then it was messy. But hey, I mean, if you go, like you said, with the right intent, with the abundance mindset, and have the resources where just one, you want to be, I mean, that's what money does, right? It helps smooth out the waves in life. And if you have the resources that, which you always want, the savings account, you don't want to spend all your money because you need to have those resources in order to have, in my opinion, to have that abundance mindset. You have to be able to take some to the chin and be able to charge it to the game to say, oh, I got, that didn't work out, but I just paid for an education and I learned something from that and be able to recover from it. Because if you're, anyway.
Well, that's you touched on a few things that I'll unpack for you. It's a perspective thing, right? Mm-hmm. Either you lose or you learn, or no, you win or you learn. That's usually one of them. The other part is that what a lot of people don't understand is that financially, especially being an entrepreneur, right? Like in the beginning, you're ground zero. Right, so everything matters. You're kind of in survival mode, right? At the beginning of your career, you're like, I'll take any deal, I'll do this, I'll do that. Once you get to a certain little level and let's say you're responsible with your money, you have a little padding, I believe that's where you can shift your mindset and be like in thrive mode where this is the kind of business I want. And even if maybe there'll be a couple of months where I don't get any business because it's not the business I want. Once you can change that, everything changes because now all of a sudden you're living the life you want to live. I feel that most of society living right now, they're living in the life they have to live because they're just stuck in it, man. Like, how it's easy for somebody else to look at you and objectively say, hey man, I think if you do this, this, and this, you could change everything. That's why people look for coaching all the time, right? But we're stuck in our own shit sometimes, and it's hard to see past the grass. And listen, me and my wife had this conversation the other day about not just business but life. Like it's hard. Like we suffer life events, and that's where if having a good spouse really can make you or break you, right? They can say, hey, look, I know you're going through this, but just take a second, breathe it in, understand this is where you're looking like you're going. Maybe it's time to realign. And as long as you're receptive to it, right? Again, being aware, right? You got to be aware that this is happening and being receptive is that maybe what I think is reality right now is not reality. It's just my perspective because I'm stuck in it. I'm stuck in it. And if I can take an objective view of it, it helps. But for most of society, I think, and I'll go even deeper with black and brown people where they came from nothing. They've always just been trying to survive, and they're always off. I call alignment. Like they're always off center because they've never had the chance to actually look at it and take a second and be like, oh, okay, this is what it's like. This is what the world is, and maybe then make their strategies and stuff like that because they've always grown. They've grown up in a deficit. They've grown up in a deficit from their parents. Like, I mean, how many broken homes are there because financial obligations, right? The wife is stressed out, the husband is stressed out, they're not getting along, he's out of here because he's drinking, because he's depressed, because life didn't work out. Like, not to break it out like that, but I'm just using that as a direct paradigm shift to where if you can get yourself, and it takes a strong mindset, man, because even if you don't have it, if you can actually program yourself to look at things differently, everything changes. Yeah. Everything changes. You can have conversations with people that you would never have conversations with before because all of a sudden you're open to it. Like, I mean, I can unpack more shit. People have imposter syndrome, right? Because they feel like, oh, I'm not qualified to talk about this. Bro, I was on the phone last night with 4 attorneys. I don't have an ESQ at the end of my name. I knew more than them. And it's because I've been doing this so long, man. Guys, this is how it really works. Oh, no, I don't. Yeah. Without me, there's no money, guys. So let's put our pants back on and let's talk like men here. And we had that conversation. But but I've been doing it for a long time. So maybe that's part of it. You know, and when I first started, I would never say something like that because I'd be like shook. I'd be like, oh, I can't. I'm like, I've been doing it more than a decade, man. So
I have a question for you. So
Sure.
with the success that you've seen, what keeps you motivated? How do you set your goals, and what keeps you striving for more?
Insatiability. Well, I come from really, really, I come from welfare. I come from a really low rung on the totem pole. So I just, whenever I feel like I'm resting on my laurels a little bit, I just remember that. And I hated that shit. And it just strives me for more. And then it pushes me along. And then I have my kids that I want to be a good example. I mean, then we can go into the legacy play where I want to leave certain things to my kids. But, the truth of the matter, what I've seen in building a business is that your kid might not be built like you because they didn't have to deal with the shit you dealt with, right? So I've put things in place for, things going left, God forbid, life insurance policies to kind of cover all that stuff. But I really hated being poor. This ain't for me, man. This wasn't for me. Like, I mean, I count my blessings all the time. You bring this up. Had a random thought the other day, right? My mother, she's diabetic, and she suffered some strokes in 2017 and stuff like that. We were going through a really hard time. And what I mean by that, I mean like mentally, I was fucked up. And I remember going to pick up her insulin, and they changed the brand of insulin, and then her Medicaid wouldn't cover it. So insulin's $250. Just for the people out there that can understand, an insulin package costs like $300. It's good for 5 days. So I've always, I count my blessings. I'm like, all right, I'll buy it. Like, what about the people that can't? What happens to those people? That, and that I just use as motivation. I was like, oh, hell fucking no, man. I want to be so far away from that. And honestly, I have a really big family. Spanish people tend to have big families. I want to be that guy that can help, if there's a call, like my aunt called me the other day. My aunt is my older aunt. She's my mom's older sister. She calls me because she's always on some hustle shit too. She was like, look, man, the city came in and they found my illegal rooms. So I got to break this all down, and, how much is going to cost me, and whatever. So, she had some of it, not all of it. Yo, it's my pleasure, man. It's my pleasure, because when I was a little kid, that was the aunt that I would always get sent to hang out with because my mom was working. So, that was the babysitter. So, to me, it's just a circle, 360 circle moment where I can take care of them now. And times 10, I have 7 aunts, 2 uncles that passed away. But a really big family. And honestly, I think it's a fucking, it's a responsibility, I believe, that somebody comes from nothing. If you have the opportunity to make something out of yourself, it's your absolute responsibility to the rest of us. And not just black and brown people, anybody who came from there. It's your fucking responsibility to show, hey man, I could do it, you could do it too. It's not on some elitist shit. It's yo, I get up, I do this, I do that. Like, these are here's the blueprint. You can do your own thing, right? And I believe that's another part that pushes me along. Like even our media guys, they're all younger than us. Well, younger than me anyway. And I'm like, yo, man, this is what you got to do. You want to grow to a media conglomerate. This is boom. You go after this client, and I break it down. And I've been lucky. I've met people in my life when I was kind of coming up that would tell me, hey man, you want to go to the next level, this is what you got to do. Yeah. And it's usually the guys who have the most that don't care. They're like, yo man, that's what you got to do.
Because they know the giver's gain.
Absolutely.
And they know, if I help Omar out at this level and then he gets to this next level, he trusts me and he's going to come to me and anyway. So it's
well, think about it this.
So
you pull up your whole team, right?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you have 10 guys that are capable, right? How much of a difference can you make that way? Like, I forgot, it was a story a friend of mine told me. He was like, yo, one of his friends, he was in the middle of a foreclosure crisis, whatever. He had 2 days to come up with $800,000, right? I think he was Persian or Jewish, I'm not sure, in Great Neck. So he had to make some calls. So my boy asked him, he goes, well, how many calls did you have to make to get the $700,000? He goes, 2. He goes, see, the difference between you and I is I would have had to make 745,000 calls. Because, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it becomes people of of ability,
Yeah.
right? Like, yo, I'm down. Yo, I got you. It's not a big deal. Because when I was down, you had me.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to what you said, giver's gain, like, I believe that. I believe if it's done the right way, because some guys are going to try to, exploit that shit. They'll be like, oh, yeah, but you're always broke, bro. Like, what the fuck? Like, you're always calling for something. But if you've done the right way, you can create a super ecosystem that you could do anything. You could do anything, bro.
Yeah. Well, it's like, when I was coming up, doing the DJ thing, I had some people that, it's like they gave me like a little, like some tools. Mm-hmm. And it's just like they stepped back, see what I did with it.
Let you rock with it.
And then saw, oh, he actually took those tools and did something, and then give me a little bit more. And like those people in your life, like if you don't have them, like you got to find them, because I mean, it works for them too, because I've made money for them at the end of the day, and they were able to kind of vet me and make sure, like, okay, like this guy's actually
be a good representative of whatever they're doing.
Right. And like, I mean, just as I grow and get older, I'm always looking for those opportunities too. Like, where do I find someone who's younger who I can, just break off a little to them and see what they do with it.
See what they do. Right, exactly.
And
that becomes the big
check
thing.
their character.
Yeah, that becomes the big thing.
Right. And then it's like, okay, cool. Like you did something with that. Like, let me give you a little more. And yeah, because I mean, it can be overwhelming when you're just, because the game is so deep. It can be too much if no one's there to just kind of break it down for you.
In
a little
little pieces. Yeah, in little pieces. Yeah, it has to be digestible.
But so here's something that has come up in my life, and I'm wondering if it has for you. So yeah, I grew up in the hip hop thing, right? Jordans and gold chains and
don't make me pull my Jordans out
and all of that. And
I didn't bring my gold chain today, but
and to me, Lil Wayne was the Beatles, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Was there a starstruck moment when you met him?
So I actually never met him.
All right,
he
so
was
you
either on stage
right.
or on the bus.
Okay.
Like me and Young Money, me, G, Young Money, all the openers, whatever, we would go to those, after parties and do that whole thing. And we, so Drake and Nicki, because they were
just
upstarts,
starting. Right.
They were there and all that. But Wayne, because I think it was partially because he was about to go to jail.
Right.
So it was like, we don't want you acting up. But it also taught me that celebrity can be your own prison.
Right.
Because if Wayne does something, I mean, that's messing up everybody's money from top to bottom. So we have to keep him contained. He can't just go out on the street.
He can't be at risk.
He can't go to Waffle House with me and I think it was DJ Five Fingers or whatever. He was Biggie's DJ. He was on tour. He was Wayne's DJ at the time. He was the coolest dude. He tweeted me back.
Yeah.
No, just like while we were on tour, I thought that was the coolest thing. It was just like no big thing. Anyway, but having these experiences, right? So starting out as a young DJ, never even dreaming going on tour with Lil Wayne was an opportunity.
Right.
Getting there, seeing it, but then realizing, wow, celebrity is a cage, and wow, people just want you for money and whatever. All these things. Realizing, wait a second, all that glitters isn't gold. Like this isn't actually what I want. Like this isn't really where I want to be. This is what I thought I wanted, but this isn't what I wanted.
Do I want to pay that price?
Right. Well, and then a few years later, it's like start making six figures, start making some money, and you think, oh, all right. And I remember I went out, I bought a gold chain, and I like did the whole thing.
Got you, Jordan.
and then realized that was empty too.
Right.
And that wasn't what I wanted. And so I'm just wondering, like, when you're goal setting, like, or when you're thinking about the future, because I think a lot of what you've shared is like running away from poverty and making sure you and your family and the people around you have choices. Like that's a big motivating factor for you.
Absolutely.
But have you ever been caught in that moment where you're like, I want money, and then you got money and you're like, well, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Now that I have a little bit of money, or that I have something, like, have you ever had that?
I would say, I mean, look, yeah, when I first started, like, obviously, like you said, the small milestones are like the watch, the this, the that, the car, then the house, then, yeah. But I always knew, because I drove a 600 V12 Mercedes at 25 years old. And it got repossessed. Well, that's a long story. But so I thought, having those material things were like change something. But at the end of the day, it's just same place, different thing. Like, you still are who you are, and that's what people have to understand. I believe you do have, you get a, I guess, I mean, that's a two-pronged sword, right? Like I believe, especially in business, like, you have to have certain cachet, because these things speak for you. And you no longer have to, like, I drive a certain car, I pull up, there's no question, like, yo, like, you know, like, all of a sudden things open up really fast. Whereas if you pull up in the Honda, like, you know, you might have to, hey man, and they're like, well, hold on, let me see. You know what I'm saying? So as long as you're aware that these things are tools, they're not objects for happiness. They're tools to help you propel yourself to wherever you want to go. And at the end, if they took it all away, you got to remember you're still you, right? Like, I like all the fancy shit. I argue with my kids about it all the time because they're like, oh, Dad, you're too fancy. I was like, F you. But I'm like, if I didn't have it tomorrow, I wouldn't be miserable. I'd probably be strategically figuring out how to get back up. But that's the hustle in me, right? And that's being resourceful because I know what it is to be down. So I just don't like it. I never want my kids to endure the pains that I endured. I told them this the other day. I said, the wounds are healed, but the scars remain. I was like, I just don't want you to have that. You're gonna have your own shit. There's gonna be some shit that I might not feel is super impactful, but to you it's super real, and I have to be aware of that, and I have to be empathetic to that. And I said, I'm waiting for those days. You know what I'm saying? But so they are what they are, but they're not the end goal. They're like almost like scorekeeping to me. Like, you know, oh, you did that. Oh shit, that's dope. Yeah, you have that. Oh yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Why do I put it on social media? To show it's possible. I believe there's a lack of representation for people that look like me or come from where I come from to say, hey, they're educated too, or hey, they know how to use debt service cash flow ratio, or they know what cap rates are. That like you know, like, they don't think about people like me when it comes to things like that. And like I said, it's your absolute responsibility to let people know if you have the mental capacity. Yo, trailblaze, man. Let these guys know, man. You can make. You don't have to be the ball player. You can be the owner. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was walking into the Barclays the other day with my boy, and he tells me that was a microaggression, Omar. That was a microaggression. I didn't realize it, but I'm walking in, and I have wood floor seats, and the guy's like, "Oh, you a boxer? You know, or were you a fighter?" I was like, "Nah, I'm just a businessman, man. I'm not a fighter." But he's like, "That's a microaggression." I'm like, "All right, you know, there's a lot of work to be done, right? Like." But I want to change that. I want to change that in my own little way. Like, whatever mark I leave will be my mark. And I want people to know everybody can make it. Like, if you hustle it, and like you said, you get like, if you're doing the right thing, you usually get people that want to help you. How much they'll help you is really, that's the X factor. Like, because some people need a little help. Like, I was told, he was like, Omar, you want to do that? You want to get to the next level? This is when I was a loan originator in the beginning. He's like, you got to get an assistant. He's like, you can't do it all by yourself. You got to get a team. He's like, I'm telling you, this guy at the time, shout out to Johnny V, he was like number one at Wells Fargo, I don't know, funding them $100 million a year, or some stupid number. He had 3 assistants, he had a branch, he had this, he had that. And he was just telling me, yo, this is what you got to do, man. He's like, if you want to get there, can't be by yourself.
Got to delegate.
Right. And I was like, but in the beginning, you're like, oh, but I can't, because, you know, I'll every deal, you know, I'm counting every dollar. And he's like, you got to let that go. You got to let that go. Just take less, build more, long game it. And I took that down. Now I have 7 people that work under me. I have processors, I have little loan originators, I have real estate agents. I have a little consortium. It took a minute to get here, but I believe in it. And there's a little bit of self-fulfillment in helping others and coaching. I have a kid, shout out to Mike. He quit Citibank. He's like, I'm coming to work for you. I was like, what? He's like, I quit my job. I was like, yo, but you're making, because I don't care. I was like, I'd rather make nothing with you and start than stay there for the rest of my life miserable.
Yeah.
And those are big statements, dude. Like, and those are the things that kind of now, like you're saying, what's your motivator? Like, people depending on you, that's a big motivator, right?
Yeah.
If you take it seriously, right? Like, if you don't care, if you're just a selfish person, you're like, oh, whatever, he did what he wanted to do. But you're like, nah, man, if you inspired him, now you have an absolute responsibility to help that kid make it to the next level.
Yeah.
So I think talking to you about that also opens up my mind to like, because lately my wife was telling me, like, because we had our dinner, and she was like, all the guys that work for me are like 27. That's like the age. 1995 was the greatest year, right? And yeah, they believe, man. Whatever they execute. And I'm like, I'm lucky to get there, because in the beginning you have people that want to work for you, but don't want to work. Right. They're like, oh, come on, man, can you do it for me? I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah,
I'm doing this, right? I can show you how to do this if you pay attention, and then you're supposed to do this. It's like somebody saying, hey, Luke, give me a DJ gig. Oh, I got to actually go work it?
Right. Well, so I've got some really good friends that I worked at a music store at just out of college. And this was a small music store. You know, one guy owned it, but it was called the New Orleans Music Exchange. Everybody goes through there. Right. It's not Guitar Center, it's nothing. It's a small store. And in order to get a job there, you had to go, you know, you'd go in, you know, he needed people, but he never advertised it. You'd have to kind of know somebody, and they'd say, oh, just stop by. So you stop by and you're like, Jimmy, you know, I'd like to work here or whatever. And he's like, oh, I'm busy. Come back next week.
Oh,
you know,
he's vetting people that way?
Yeah. And then, you know, and then if you showed up the next week, he'd be like, you know what, you caught me at a bad time. Call me in 2 days, you know, at this time or something. And you call him up and he'd be like, okay, why don't you come by the store and I'll have somebody, you know, and he was, and I didn't realize it at the time, but he was making sure you were hungry, you wanted it, that you were going to show up on time, you listened to him ahead of time without even, like, it's just so, like, to me, that's like game, like one-on-one. He just knew, like, he knew what he was doing without having to tell anybody. And if you didn't show up, it's like, cool, well, I already have a successful music store. I don't need this kid.
Right.
He, you know, and he kind of wanted to make sure you needed him more than he needed you. Right. But anyway, but it's just like stuff like that, right? And I think that's kind of the transition I'm going to right now is like, or going through right now is like trying to figure out, how do you vet people? How do you build that team? How do you become a coach, not a player, while respecting the player? Because I think there's some people, like you said, that are going to exploit the player and think of it as beneath them in some sort of way. But it's like, no, it's like your role has changed. People now depend on you. And it's just as admirable to be the coach and the owner as it is to be the player, in having that respect. But, you know, anyway, just like it's a whole different thing.
You gotta own that position. It's different. Yeah.
But I think it takes growth, and it takes, you know, it's like, and it takes a you know, I think, at least for me, you know, you kind of start out a little narcissistic. You think about yourself, you know, as an independent person, and then you have to grow to be like, look, it's actual success comes from growing other people and helping them and being the person that connects that network.
To start a movement.
To put those people together. And that will only heighten you. By being selfless, you can, if you do it the right way, if you understand business and you can really continually help people, like, you can have people, you can recognize their superpower, and you can say, look, you're really good at this thing. We're
putting you here.
Yeah, like you're great with people. I think you'd be great at the front desk, you know, doing that thing. You're able to, you know, mitigate conflict or whatever. Okay, cool. You don't really like people, but you know, like numbers or whatever. You can work in the back office. I see that in you. This is great. And you empower those people, and then they work with you. Right. You know, they don't necessarily work for you. They're part of your team. I mean, depending on how you want to look at it. And I don't know, and I see that you're at that step, you know.
Yeah.
And what I guess, how did you make that transition?
Fucking patience. And no, my wife. It's a work in progress, because, you know, like, you're used to doing something at a certain speed, and then you have to slow it down, right? You have to slow it down because you have to let people kind of find their own way and understand, and the only way they're gonna learn is by you not doing it for them, but rather you directing them. And that's kind of where I'm at now. It's patience. You gotta work, because, you know, you're changing. You're going from being like LeBron, and now you're like, yo, man, I'm a player coach now. Like, I'm a number 2. I don't want to be number 1 option. I want to be number 2, number 3. So now you got to put guys in front of you. Of course, you know, there's gonna be ups and downs with it, because there'll be times when you have to inspire through action, right? So they got to see what's possible, because if not, they'll just stay in their own self-limiting mindset. But then also, when they have their deal, Like what I do with them, we break the deal down. Hey, this is why it works. This is why it doesn't. This is where we're sending it. Sell this to the client. I try not to get on the phone with their client. If I do, it's because they need like a second hand or just a second voice. But it just takes patience, you know. I mean, and then you have to also remember still be firing at all cylinders for your business while partitioning time for them. So that is the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah, I see a lot of small business owners. They get caught up in the only I can do this, or
Right.
I'm the only one that can do it the right way.
Right.
Or they forget that they're the business owner, or they leave too much to the new person or whatever. Like
Right.
Like so, I've had assistants and things in the past, and like I always, because I've worked for a lot of small business owners, and I hated when they just said, "Oh, go do this thing," but with no guidance.
Right.
And it's like, well, I've never done this before.
Yeah, how
so
do you do this?
I always thought it was my responsibility to not just give them this thing and tell them to go do it, but to actually break it down into tasks that they can. The difference between the coach and the player is the player is executing. The coach has the plan.
Right.
And if you're not taking the time to come up with the plan,
What are we executing?
Right, like
Right.
you're leaving your person in the dust, you know, and I don't know. So it's just like a totally different thing. So yeah, instead of picking up the phone, you have to say, look, these are the scripts or these are the things that you need to do. But you have to, as the owner, take that responsibility and not think, oh, well, I'm just going to hire another LeBron and he'll just know what to do.
No,
You know?
because there's a concept where I call dilution, where I believe if you're too separate, it gets diluted, and it just the magic just gets lost. So I believe, like right now I have 2 LOs, 2 loan originators, and I'm training them. I give them like a year. And then once they get to a certain speed, then maybe we take on 2 more, or maybe they can take on assistants, and maybe they can do that. But I told, because I have people all the time, I want to come. I'm like, I'm closed. I'm only one person, right? And I'm running multiple platforms. I'm running the Resi platform that's about to drop, the commercial lending platform, and the real estate platform. So, and I'm in every piece because most of my business is from relationships. I'm not cold calling. These are all like clients of mine or friends of mine, and the whole real estate thing happened where one of my boys was like, look, who I have the loans for, he's like, hey, I want you to sell my house. I was like, it's not really my thing. He's like, yeah, I want you to sell my house. I was like, I don't want nobody else. I know you'll take care of it, like the way you take care of everything else. So I was like, all right. So we kind of parlayed that and used the culture of the lending into the real estate, and yeah, it's a good thing. It's just a matter of setting an expectation, also being good with your time. You got to be strategic. You have people in place, and you got to know when to say yes, when to say no. Sometimes, because sometimes it gets a little crazy because they want you everywhere, and you can't be effective if you're everywhere. You have to, like, there's certain days I'm in the office where the email game is crazy. Like when I'm in the office, you'll know because the emails are just obliterating everybody. If I'm on the street, they'll know I'm on the street. You'll have to hit me by text, and then Cynthia, my main assistant, she'll coordinate. But that took time too, because now you have to not only tell your team what you're gonna do, you got to have your day planned out. Like it takes a lot of organization. That's the part where it takes patience, because you gotta be accountable too. You have all right, so do they know if I'm out? Like you said, the worst thing is for me to just not be them. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just sitting around saying, what am I supposed to do today? Right? And so I have to leave. If I know I'm out Tuesday, on Sunday, they have the hit list for the week. And Monday is what we want. Tuesday is what we want. Wednesday, Omar's not here. If you need me, text me, but I'll be back here. It takes a lot of prep work. And that's the part where, as you ascend as a business owner, you have to start learning how to do that, because like you said, people depend on you. If they knew how to do it, they wouldn't need you. Right? So you got to take that into consideration. Hey man, they want to know it. And going back to what you said, you got to make it digestible. You can't give them so much that they'll be like, what? What do you mean? And
do you ever get nervous that you're going to train your competition?
No.
Your future competition?
No, because I've had the conversation before. I'm like, look, man, if you feel that you're gonna compete against me, then good, game on. But I really believe in myself. I don't believe, it's not an arrogance. It's really a confidence where I'm like, yo, man, I really give the best. And if I'm giving you the best as a trainer or as an employee, usually people don't want to leave. I'm like, there's no reason to leave. Usually people leave because they have there's something that's missing. And when we go over things, like I have a quarterly with everybody. I'm like, yo, what's good? What do you think? What can we help with? We do that. Things come up. But there's a lot. It's a lot. Like, remember, I've been doing it since 2005. For somebody to come on and like in a year to get it, it'd be a discredit to me, man. I'm like, damn, bro, I thought I was intelligent. You know, it took me like 15 years to acquire all this knowledge. This guy got it in 3 weeks. So I'm not worried about that because I've never stopped. So this is year, I don't know, 17, and I'm still growing, I'm still learning, I'm still going. You know, like I told one guy, I was like, I would have to go to sleep for 10 years for you to maybe, and you'd have to get to work every day and do what I do for every day for you to be where I'm at. So I'm not going to sleep. So whatever. It was a friendly, competitive conversation with a contemporary associate. I was like, yeah, man.
Well, there's that saying that steel sharpens steel, right? And the competition. That, I mean, if you're really, you know, passionate about something, I feel like it makes you more passionate about it. It's like, oh, he thinks he can beat me. All right, watch this, and it forces you to be innovative and creative and figure out a new way to do something better than your competition. So, you know, and that, I mean, that's another mindset thing, is everything's an opportunity.
Right.
Like, everything's an opportunity, no matter how you look at it. Like, in our office meetings, you know, we talk about, oh, well, what if somebody asks to negotiate commission? What am I, or ask me if I need to lower my commission? Well, the number one reason why people want to work with a realtor is because they think they have good negotiation skills.
Right.
So that's your opportunity to show off your negotiation skills and get that commission that you deserve, and not fold and say, oh, yeah, I guess I'll take it for less or do whatever. Because as soon as you start doing that, then, you know, whatever, you have to explain your value.
Yeah, you devalue yourself.
Right. Yeah. And you have to show your value. And, oh, I'm talking to X realtor and they're going to give me a deal on this. Yeah, but are they going to do what I'm going to do? Do they have the reputation that I have? Do they, you know, what are they, you know, let's make sure we're comparing apples to apples here.
Yeah, that's a great statement. So, because people, what people have to understand is there's only one of you. If people understood that, that's it. That's the negotiation. Why am I paying you more? Because there's nobody who's going to do it the way I'm going to do it. Whatever that means. You know, then you whip out your business plan. But people are like, oh, I'll do it for 10 cents less. I was like, you should go with them, man. Like, I've had that conversation. I've fired client, hey, man, oh, Chase will do it for less money. Go to Chase. Yeah. Good luck. And then he's like, he calls my assistant, hey, Mike, I want to speak to Lou. He's like, you're not his client anymore. But why? Go to Chase, he said. That's what he told me. He told me to tell you go to Chase. Because it becomes a headache where you're arguing with somebody who thinks they know more than you. If this is my profession, bro, then please respect it. Yeah. Right? Like, if I go to BMW and I'm like, yo, man, change the oil in my car. I have no idea how to get under it. I don't know how to do that shit. I'm not going to tell the guy, oh, the filter is too expensive. Yo, do it. I'm done with that. Like, that's his shit. Yeah. My shit is structuring loans. So I'm telling you, you're not going to pass. Why? Because you have an illegal basement apartment. You have a rent stable, like, you know, I can break it down. Like, you have open violation of 16. It's not going to go. Oh, I'm going to try. Well, good luck. Yeah. It's good luck.
No, and from the realtor side, working with a lender that understands the process, that can answer the phone, like dealing with Chase just specifically is a headache, because the underwriters in wherever
in Texas
and you know, oh, you got to be on this list if you're going to talk to, you know, if I'm going to share this information. And it's like, look, you know, you told our client, our mutual client, that they needed this. They don't quite understand it, and they're telling me that they already sent it, but you're still asking for it. I'm just trying to help. I'm trying to help the process here. You know, I'm just trying to make this work. Right. And so it can make a huge difference in the process, how quickly things can get done, how efficient we can be when we're working as a team, when I can call up the lender and say, hey, Omar, what do you need?
Yeah, what's holding us up?
What's holding us up here? So that I can help, you know, make that happen. Because sometimes, you know, clients get busy or this is and we can really get to the bottom of it and get it done. Because, dealing with, you know, it's just when those systems aren't on point, it can really, I mean, it can kill a deal.
I think the best statement I can say right now is real estate's a team sport, guys. There's so many different factions that have to be aligned. There's the lenders, titles, insurances, realtor, there's the attorney. It's a team sport, so guys have to be on the same page with each other. And if we're on one side of the table purchasing, then we're on the same team. If we're on the other side, you know, like there's certain, like yesterday, I'm on a conference call with the attorneys, and he's like, well, does your client have money? I'm like, well, you're the seller's side, so I don't feel comfortable talking about that, but does your client have money? He was like, no. I was like, all right, there. End of story. My client's gonna get the money. Don't worry about it. But that was the kind of, like, I'm like, I can't give that info. I'm asking you, can we solve the problem right now? Does your client have the ability to solve the problem?
Right.
No. Okay, then my client will solve it. I just need to know are we gonna adjourn this for tomorrow morning, or like, are we doing this tomorrow? Or are we doing it in 5 days? That's all I need to know.
And it's really helpful to work with people that know the process, from front to back, that have been through a few things, so that we can get to what the issue is, so we can solve the problem,
right?
And not go back and forth, tit for tat, argue, whatever ends up happening, when people don't know what the problem is, or what are we looking to solve here? I think that's always, it goes all the way back to kind of what we were initially talking about, mindset and everything. When you're working with people that their mindset is their ego and proving their worth, you can get really in the mud with them about stuff that doesn't matter. That's not a part of the deal. This isn't going to move the ball forward. This is just you doing whatever. Or people that are inexperienced and just don't know what to look for, or don't understand the coded language that's happening. Cozy house, what does that mean? Oh, it's small.
It's 2 bedrooms or less.
Yeah. So anyway, or handyman special. I had someone ask me the other day, is like, what's the difference between move-in ready, live-in ready, and handyman special? It's like,
right. I'll break it down for you right now.
Yeah. So just helping people work through that, but that's a huge difference between, and that's why you go with somebody who's local, who's here, who can.
Well, what's the craziest thing you've had happen with a lender? You don't have to name the lender, but what's the funniest thing? Like, one of the funniest things that happened to me was yesterday with, I had 2 simultaneous transactions and nobody had cash. I'm like, how do you guys think this was gonna work?
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's gonna pay for the proceeds. Oh, he's gonna pay for the proceeds. Well, somebody has to have cash to do one proceed, right? And then they'll get their money back. I was like, who's the mathematician who did this?
Right.
So that was one of the wildest ones. Like, you guys wait for the clear to close. There's settlement statements. There's what do they call it? Not the CD, but rather the just the breakdown of the check breakdown, right? Everybody's sending out these check breakdowns. I'm like, okay, none of the attorneys knew. They both knew their clients didn't have any cash. But they're sending out these emails. Like, I had to have this conversation. Like, who made these emails?
Yeah.
Your client has no money in the bank. There's no money on deposit. Your sales contract has $1,000 on it. What kind of joke is this, man? Yeah. Oh, well, I thought the other. Yeah, well, everybody's thinking the other guy. But here I am in the middle. Nobody did anything.
Right.
So,
Well, that's key, is communication.
Right.
And that, I think that's where I've seen a lot of success, is just picking up the phone and calling people, and just making sure we're all on the same page, because you can't assume anything. But yeah, the craziest thing with lenders sometimes is they'll write a pre-approval but not have any sort of verification. Or what the craziest thing that happened to me is getting into contract with somebody who ended up not having the money before we accepted this offer, called the lender, said, hey, have you verified their income? Have you verified, where's this money coming from?
Good.
Have you looked at the same? All good. I can verify this person's good, yada, yada. Okay, we're going to go into contract because this person needed to pull money from their 401k. And 3 weeks later, we don't have any money, sorry. And I've never worked with that lender before, and I'm never going to work with them again. When I see
So the client said he had 401k money and then didn't have it. That's what happened. Oh, okay, I understand.
Yeah. Well, and the lender said, oh, yeah, I saw that account. It's got it. Don't worry about it.
Sure you did.
We got it. Like, oh, yada, yada. And, and when we started asking questions of like, well, why can't this person put down $1,000 or something just to get,
to bind us.
Put something down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, we looked at her account. She's only got $800 in her account. Well, when I called to verify before we were in contract and I asked about all this stuff,
you said it was good.
You said it was good. And now we're in contract. Your person hasn't put down any money, and you're saying, oh, well, you should wait because it's going to come out of the 401k. It's the government's fault, blah, 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 blah. And, but yeah, she actually doesn't have any money to put down, like even $1,000 to put down. How is she buying a house?
Right.
And why? Anyway, right. I'm getting on a whole thing. So,
I digress.
So having somebody, though, that I know that I can call, a real lender that I can call and say, hey, what's actually going on
story,
here?
Bro? Yeah.
And get those things. That makes me look better to my client.
Yeah.
My person selling.
It makes you feel better too.
Yeah, and it's just like, cool. Like, let's get this money. Let's make this happen. Versus dealing with a large corporation where the people don't matter. It's the systems, and they just you know, everybody's always learning anybody good gets promoted.
Right.
And
they're not there too long, right?
Yeah. And then anybody, you know, that you're actually dealing with just doesn't know or has a million excuses or blames the other person or whatever it is. So.
And
anyway.
this is Real Estate 101, guys.
It's a lot of I mean, it's why we can't get replaced by AI, at least not anytime soon.
Absolutely. I believe in that 100%. I think that they made a push for it. They took a beating. All these the fintech companies are out of business now, and it is what it is. All right, listen, in summary, when people need to buy something or sell something, where can they contact you?
Yeah, so check me out on Instagram at listwithlukeNY. It's my tag on everything. Instagram's the best way, or you can find me on HoulihanLawrence.com. Search me up as an agent.
Houlihan Lawrence, Luke Joachim.
Joachim.
Joachim. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, guys, you might see Luke and I at a party. I don't know. I might do something with the DJ guy I just met. I don't know. You might see us at open house together. We might be co-brokering stuff. I don't know. You got to keep watching. All right, guys? Thanks a lot.